You know that feeling? The one where your stomach just drops, like, falls right through the floor, leaving this icy, hollow space where your insides used to be. That sudden, sickening lurch when reality shifts so violently it gives you whiplash? Yeah, I know that feeling. I know it intimately. It's burned into my memory, branded onto my soul, all thanks to a single, seemingly innocent notification on my phone. Just a little ping. A little red circle with a number 1 inside it on the Instagram app. An app one usually scrolled through mindlessly, looking at memes, pictures of my friends' dogs, maybe some cool cars. But this notification, this one changed everything. It detonated the life I thought I had, the future I thought was guaranteed. It revealed that the woman I loved, the woman I was about to marry, the woman I trusted with every fiber of my being, was living a lie so profound, so devastating, it still makes my head spin just thinking about it. My name is Alex. Well, I guess I was, just a regular guy. 28 years old, working in marketing, living in a decent apartment downtown. Nothing spectacular, but I was happy. Or at least, I thought I was. The centerpiece of that supposed happiness was Chloe. We met 3 years ago, a classic setup by mutual friends. She was bright, funny, ambitious, gorgeous, obviously. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. We fell hard and fast. It felt like one of those movie romances, you know? The kind where everything just clicks. 6 months ago, I proposed. On one knee, under the stars, ring I'd saved for months for the whole 9 yards. She cried, said yes, jumped into my arms. It was perfect. Or so the script went. We were planning the wedding, arguing good-naturedly about flower arrangements and guest lists, tasting cakes, dreaming about our honeymoon. Life felt like it was finally aligning, all the pieces falling into place. We were that couple. The ones people looked at and said, goals. God, what a joke. Looking back now, with the horrific clarity of hindsight, maybe there were signs. Tiny little cracks in the perfect facade that I willfully ignored, blinded by love or maybe just stupidity. She'd become a little more private with her phone lately. Always angled away from me, quickly closing apps if I walked into the room unexpectedly. I chalked it up to wedding planning stress, maybe coordinating surprises with her bridesmaids. Then there were the occasional late nights working, the slightly vague answers about who she'd had lunch with. But nothing major, nothing concrete. Nothing that screamed, your fiancé is betraying you in the most brutal way imaginable. She was just busy, stressed, excited about the wedding. That's what I told myself. That's the narrative I clung to. Because the alternative was unthinkable. Then came the girls' trip. Chloe announced it about a month before this all blew up. She said her maid of honor, Sarah, was organizing a surprise spa weekend. Just the girls, a chance to de-stress before the final wedding push. Sounded reasonable, right? Needed. She seemed so excited, talking about massages and facials, needing a break from seating charts and vendor calls. She packed a small weekend bag, kissed me goodbye that Friday morning, full of smiles and promises to call later. Love you, babe. See you Sunday night. Those were her last words to me before she walked out the door, leaving me in our apartment, naively planning a welcome home dinner for her return. I felt a little lonely that weekend, but mostly happy for her. Happy she was getting a break. Happy she had good friends to support her. The irony is so thick now, it chokes me. Saturday afternoon rolled around. I was lounging on the couch, flicking through channels, occasionally checking my phone. Chloe had sent a text earlier saying the spa had spotty service, but she was having fun. Vague, but again, I didn't question it. Why would I? Then came the ping. Instagram. A notification saying, at random dude 123 tagged you in a photo. I frowned. I didn't recognize the handle. Probably spam, or some mistaken tag. Curiosity got the better of me as it does. I tapped the notification. The app opened, the picture loaded. And my world stopped. It wasn't spam. It wasn't a mistake. The photo, it was crystal clear. A stunning beach, turquoise water, white sand. Definitely not some boutique spa place upstate. And there, right in the center of the frame, was Chloe. My Chloe. Wearing a bikini I'd never seen before, laughing, head thrown back, looking deliriously happy. And she wasn't alone. Her arms were wrapped around a guy. Tall, tanned, muscular, smug-looking guy I'd never seen in my life. His arm was tied around her waist, pulling her close. They weren't just standing next to each other. They were intertwined, possessive, intimate. His face was inches from hers, beaming down at her like she was the only thing that mattered. The caption beneath the photo read, "Another perfect day in paradise with my queen." Hashtag Maldives, hashtag blessed, hashtag couple goals. And there, plain as day, tagged right on Chloe's smiling face, was her Instagram handle, alongside his. At Random Dude 123, apparently that was Chloe's lover. Her queen status belonged to him, not me. The Maldives. Not a spa upstate. A luxurious, romantic getaway. Not a girl's trip. My breath hitched. My heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape. It felt like the air got sucked out of the room. I stared at the photo, my eyes darting between Chloe's laughing face and the tag, the caption, the exotic background. Disbelief warred with a rising tide of nausea. This had to be fake. Photoshopped. Some cruel prank. My fingers trembled as I tapped on the guy's profile. At Random Dude 123. His name was Mark. His profile was public. And it was filled, absolutely filled, with pictures of him and Chloe. Not just from this trip, but going back months. Them clinking champagne glasses at a fancy restaurant I didn't recognize. Them cuddled up on a boat, the city skyline behind them. Them kissing, cheek to cheek, at some rooftop bar. Picture after picture chronicling a relationship I had no idea existed. A secret life my fiancée was living behind my back. The spa weekend wasn't a spa weekend. It was a romantic rendezvous halfway across the world with another man. While I was at home, picking out wedding invitations, the shock was physical. A cold wave washed over me, followed by a burning heat that prickled my skin. I felt dizzy, like I was going to throw up. I scrolled frantically through Mark's feed, each photo a fresh stab to my already shattered heart. The dates, some of them lined up with those late nights she supposedly worked. Others coincided with times she claimed to be visiting family or out with girlfriends. The lies, the sheer scale of the deception, it was staggering. It wasn't a fling. It wasn't a momentary lapse. This was a full-blown affair. A parallel life. He called her his queen. He used hashtag couple goals. The audacity. The disrespect. The utter contempt she must have had for me, for our relationship, for the vows we were about to take. I clicked back to the tagged photo. The one that started it all. The accidental tag. The fatal mistake made by her lover, too caught up in his tropical bliss to double-check who he was tagging, or maybe just arrogant enough not to care. He tagged her personal, main account. The one I followed. The one all our friends and family followed. Had he meant to tag a secret account? Or was he deliberately staking his claim? It didn't matter. The damage was done. The truth was out, staring me in the face from the glossy screen of my phone. My vision blurred. Tears welled up, hot and stinging. Not just tears of sadness, but tears of rage. Fury like I'd never known boiled up inside me, a volcanic pressure building in my chest. How could she? After everything? The promises, the plans, the I love yous that now tasted like ash in my mouth. Was any of it real? Or was I just a convenient placeholder? A fool providing stability while she sought excitement elsewhere? The image of her laughing in that photo, wrapped in his arms, burned itself onto my retinas. The casual intimacy, the shared joy, it was a betrayal so deep it felt like it was tearing me apart from the inside out. My hands clenched into fists, my knuckles white. The phone screen seemed to mock me with its brightness, displaying the evidence of my utter humiliation. The perfect couple. What a lie. My fiancée wasn't on a girl's trip. She was on vacation with her lover. And he just accidentally invited the whole world, including me, to witness it. My mind raced, thoughts colliding, fragmenting. What do I do? What can I even do? The foundations of my world had crumbled beneath me, leaving me standing in the ruins, staring at a picture that proved my entire life was a sham. And deep down, beneath the shock and the pain, a cold, hard knot of something else began to form. Resolve. She wasn't going to get away with this. Oh no. The spa weekend might be over for her, but the real trip, the real journey into consequences, was just beginning. The silence in the apartment after that discovery was deafening. It pressed in on me, amplifying the frantic pounding in my chest and the roar of betrayal in my ears. I must have sat there for hours, just staring at the phone, scrolling through Mark's profile, each photo a fresh twist of the knife. The initial shock slowly, agonizingly morphed into something else. A white-hot rage mixed with a profound, soul-crushing sadness. How could I have been so blind? The signs I dismissed, the guarded phone, the vague excuses, now glared at me like neon warnings I'd stupidly ignored. Every memory of the past few months, maybe even longer, replayed in my mind, now tainted, twisted by this new, horrific knowledge. Her laughter, her kisses, her promises, all felt like counterfeit currency I'd gladly accepted as real. Sunday evening arrived like a looming execution. Chloe was due back. I hadn't slept. I hadn't eaten. I just paced the apartment, a caged animal fueled by adrenaline and heartbreak. My phone buzzed intermittently with texts from her. Hey, heading back soon. Traffic's a bit rough. Can't wait to see you. Missed you. Face-blowing kiss, the casual affection, the emojis. It was nauseating. How could she act so normal, so loving, after spending the weekend, possibly longer, in another man's arms in the freaking Maldives? The sheer duplicity was breathtaking. I didn't respond to her texts. Let her wonder. Let her walk into the storm she created. The key turned in the lock around 9 p.m. My heart rate spiked. I was sitting on the living room couch, the apartment dark except for the cold glow of my phone screen, which I'd left open to that picture. The tagged photo. Her and Mark. Paradise. Her lover. She walked in, pulling her small weekend bag behind her, humming softly. Babe? You home? Why is it so dark? She called out, flicking on the entryway light. She saw me then, sitting there like a statue carved from ice and fury. Her cheerful expression faltered slightly. Hey, everything okay? You look intense. I didn't say anything. I just lifted the phone, turning the screen towards her. Her eyes followed the movement, landed on the image. I watched her face, watched the color drain from it, watched the flicker of confusion turn into dawning horror, then sheer panic. Her breath hitched. Her hand flew to her mouth. Alex, what? What is that? Her voice was barely a whisper, suddenly trembling. What is that? I echoed, my own voice dangerously low, tight with suppressed rage. That, Chloe, is a picture of you. On your girls' trip. Looks like a fantastic spa upstate, doesn't it? Funny, I always pictured the Maldives looking a bit different. The sarcasm dripped like venom. Her eyes darted around wildly, looking for an escape, an explanation, anything. Alex, I can explain. It's not what it looks like. The classic line. The first refuge of the guilty. Oh, really? I stood up then, slowly, deliberately. I felt strangely calm on the surface, but underneath, a volcano was churning. It looks like you, Chloe. In a bikini I've never seen. On a beach that's definitely not upstate New York. With your arms wrapped around some guy named Mark. Who calls you his queen? Who tagged you? Accidentally, I presume? Or was that part of the thrill? Letting your fiancé know what a fool he is. Every word was measured, cold. Her face crumpled. Tears started streaming down her cheeks. Fake tears? Real tears of regret? At that moment, I couldn't tell, and frankly, I didn't care. Alex, please, she sobbed, taking a step towards me. I instinctively recoiled. It just happened. Mark, we have a history from before you, and we reconnected, and things got complicated. Complicated. That's what she called jetting off to a tropical paradise with another man while engaged to me? Complicated? I repeated, the word tasting foul. Chloe, this isn't complicated. This is betrayal. This is you lying to my face for God knows how long. Look at his profile. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This is a whole other life you've been living. She flinched, realizing I'd seen more than just the one photo. The dam broke. The excuses started pouring out, a torrent of justifications and minimizations. It didn't mean anything. She was confused. Wedding stress made her do crazy things. She loved me. She wanted to marry me. Mark was just an escape, a fantasy. It was over now. She swore it was over. She begged me to forgive her, to not throw away everything we had built. Built on what? Lies? Deceit? The foundation was rotten to the core. Her tears, her pleas, they didn't move me. Not anymore. Seeing her stand there, desperately trying to spin this, trying to manipulate me back into the role of the understanding, forgiving partner, it just solidified my resolve. The love I'd felt for her, the fierce, all-consuming love, was rapidly being replaced by something cold and hard. Disgust, contempt, and a burning desire for, not revenge, exactly, but justice. Consequences. She wasn't going to just cry her way out of this. Get out, I said, my voice flat, devoid of the emotion raging inside me. She stared at me, stunned. What? Get out. Pack your things. Whatever you brought back from your trip. And leave. Her eyes widened in disbelief, then narrowed with anger. You can't be serious, Alex. We can work through this. Don't throw this away over one mistake. One mistake. I laughed, a harsh, broken sound. Chloe, this wasn't one mistake. This was a calculated campaign of deception. You looked me in the eye and lied, day after day. You let me plan a wedding, invest my heart, my future, my money, into a relationship you were actively sabotaging. This isn't a mistake. This is who you are. She tried arguing, pleading, then resorted to anger, accusing me of being controlling, of not trusting her, the irony, of overreacting. She even tried to gaslight me, suggesting maybe I was the problem, maybe I wasn't paying enough attention to her, driving her to seek comfort elsewhere. It was textbook deflection. Pathetic. I stood my ground, unmoved. Eventually, realizing I wasn't budging, she switched tactics again, collapsing into sobbing hysterics, begging for another chance, promising she'd do anything. But the image of her laughing on that beach with Mark was seared into my brain. The trust wasn't just broken, it was obliterated, atomized. Leave, Chloe, I repeated, pointing towards the door. Or I'll pack your bags myself and leave them in the hallway. The finality in my voice must have registered. Defeated, she slumped. With tears still streaming, she started gathering the few things she'd unpacked, stuffing them back into her bag. The silence stretched, thick with tension and the wreckage of our future. As she reached the door, bag in hand, she turned back, her eyes red-rimmed and pleading. Alex, please don't tell anyone. My parents, the wedding. That's when it hit me. Her primary concern wasn't the loss of me or the relationship. It was her image, her reputation, the wedding, the social fallout. That realization was like a final bucket of ice water. Get out, I said one last time, my voice like granite. She flinched, then turned and fled, slamming the door behind her. And I was alone again. But this time, the loneliness felt different. It wasn't the temporary absence of a loved one. It was the gaping void left by a betrayal so profound it had redefined my reality. The next few days were a blur of numb disbelief and simmering rage. Chloe bombarded my phone with calls, texts, voicemails, alternating between tearful apologies, angry accusations, and desperate pleas. I ignored them all. Then came the calls from her friends, even her mother, trying to intervene, telling me I was making a mistake, that Chloe was devastated, that everyone deserves a second chance. Her mother actually had the audacity to suggest I should apologize for upsetting Chloe after her relaxing trip. The delusion was staggering. They were closing ranks, trying to pressure me into smoothing things over, preserving the perfect image. But something had shifted within me during that confrontation. The victim complex was fading, replaced by a cold, calculating anger. She was worried about her reputation, about the wedding, about what people would think. Fine, let's talk about reputations. I started digging, not just through Mark's Instagram, but through old emails, shared cloud storage, even bank statements I still had access to. It wasn't hard. People engaging in long-term affairs get sloppy, complacent. I found emails between Chloe and Mark planning not just the Maldives trip, but other spa weekends and business trips over the past year. I found receipts for gifts, hotels, flights, charged to a credit card I didn't know she had. The scale of it was sickening. The amount of money spent, the elaborate lies woven to cover her tracks, it was meticulous. I saved everything. Screenshots, email forwards, PDF copies of statements. Evidence. Cold, hard proof that refuted any notion of a one-time mistake. My best friend, Dave, came over as soon as I called him. He listened patiently, his expression growing darker with every detail I shared. He didn't offer platitudes or easy answers. He just poured me a stiff drink and said, "Okay, man. What's the plan? Because we're not letting her walk away from this smelling like roses." That was exactly what I needed to hear. It wasn't about petty revenge anymore. It was about ensuring the truth came out. It was about protecting myself. It was about making sure she understood the gravity of her actions. A plan began to form, piece by agonizing piece. The wedding venue deposit. The shared apartment lease. The joint savings account we'd started for the house down payment. The engagement ring sitting heavy in its box on my nightstand. And most importantly, the narrative. Her narrative of the poor, stressed bride-to-be who made a little slip-up versus the reality of a calculated, long-term affair. She was counting on my silence, on my unwillingness to cause a scene or air our dirty laundry. She underestimated me. She underestimated the fury of a man who'd had his heart, his trust, and his future ripped out and stomped on. She wanted to protect her image? Fine. Let's make sure everyone sees the real picture. Not just the one her lover accidentally tagged her in. No, they were going to see the whole damn gallery. The game wasn't over. It was just getting started. The weeks following Chloe's tearful exit were a strange mix of profound emptiness and focused determination. The apartment felt cavernously empty, haunted by the ghost of the life we were supposed to build there. Every corner held a memory, now tainted. But the grief, while present, was increasingly overshadowed by a cold, methodical anger. Her continued attempts at contact, the voicemails oscillating between sobbing apologies and entitled demands for her things, the messages from her flying monkey friends insisting I was being unreasonable, only fueled my resolve. They were all operating under the assumption that this could be smoothed over, swept under the rug, perhaps with some grand gesture of forgiveness from me after I'd had time to cool off. They fundamentally misunderstood the depth of the betrayal and the shift it had caused within me. I wasn't cooling off. I was hardening. My plan wasn't about theatrical revenge in the way you see in movies, slashing tires, or dramatic public confrontations fueled by pure rage. No, it was colder, more calculated. It was about dismantling the facade she cared so much about, brick by painstaking brick, using the truth as my weapon. It was about ensuring that the consequences of her actions landed squarely where they belonged, without letting her control the narrative or play the victim. Dave was my rock through this, my consigliere. We spent hours strategizing, fueled by coffee and a shared sense of righteous indignation. First, the practicalities. I contacted the landlord, explained the situation briefly, without excessive detail, professionalism mattered, and initiated the process of getting Chloe removed from the lease. It involved some paperwork and awkward conversations, but it was a necessary step to reclaim my space, my sanctuary. Then, the finances. That joint savings account for the house down payment? I consulted a lawyer, just a quick consultation to understand my rights. Since we weren't married, and I could prove the vast majority of the funds originated from my income and savings prior to the account being joint, I had a strong claim. Following legal advice, I moved my documented contributions into a separate account solely in my name, leaving only the portion Chloe had verifiably contributed. I sent her a certified letter with a cashier's check for her amount and a statement explaining the division, citing irreconcilable differences as the reason for dissolving our shared financial goal. No emotion, just facts. I knew this would hit her hard, that down payment was a huge part of her perfect future narrative. Next, the wedding vendors. This part was painful, but necessary. Calling the venue, the caterer, the photographer, explaining that the wedding was off. Most were understanding, though the loss of deposits stung. It was the tangible financial cost of her betrayal, and I made sure, through carefully worded emails, CCNG Chloe's personal email address for informational purposes, that the reason cited was the dissolution of the relationship due to unforeseen circumstances discovered shortly after her recent trip. Vague, yet pointed. Let her explain the details if vendors asked. The engagement ring. That beautiful, expensive symbol of promises broken. I thought about selling it, throwing it into a river, mailing it back to her in pieces. But Dave suggested something better. Keep it safe. It was leverage, a reminder of what she'd thrown away. Its fate could be decided later. For now, its absence from her finger would speak volumes. The real core of the plan, however, revolved around the narrative. Chloe was undoubtedly spinning a tale of woe to her family and sympathetic friends, a momentary lapse, a misunderstanding blown out of proportion by an unforgiving fiancé. Her parents, especially her mother, were likely amplifying this, painting me as the cold-hearted villain who refused to forgive a simple mistake. This couldn't stand. The truth needed an audience, but not in a messy, screaming match kind of way. It needed to be surgical. The opportunity presented itself perfectly. Chloe's parents, blissfully unaware of the real reason for the sudden radio silence and likely fed Chloe's sanitized version of events, insisted on hosting a pre-wedding family dinner. It had been planned weeks in advance, meant to finalize some details and bring both families closer. Chloe, desperate to maintain the illusion, had apparently agreed, likely hoping she could manipulate me into playing along for one evening, buying herself more time. Her mother sent me a formal invitation via email, with a sickly sweet note about clearing the air and getting the planning back on track. It was the perfect stage. I replied politely, confirming my attendance. Dave thought I was crazy. "Dude, are you sure you want to walk into the lion's den like that?" he asked. "It's not about wanting to," I replied, grimly. "It's about needing to. It ends tonight. On my terms." I spent the days leading up to the dinner preparing. Not weapons, but information. I compiled a small, neat folder. Inside were printouts. Mark's tagged Instagram photo, of course. A few other key pictures from his profile, them kissing, the Maldives geotag visible. copies of the incriminating emails planning their getaways, a summary of the credit card statement showing expenditures for flights and hotels during times she was supposed to be working or with family, and finally, a copy of the jeweler's receipt for the engagement ring. The night of the dinner arrived. I dressed carefully, not flashy, but sharp, calm, composed. Walking into her parents' pristine suburban home felt like entering enemy territory. Chloe was there, her eyes wide with a mixture of hope and terror when she saw me. Her parents, Richard and Carol, greeted me with forced smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. My own parents were supposed to attend too, but I'd called them beforehand, told them the wedding was off, and advised them politely but firmly not to come to this dinner. They were shocked and hurt, but respected my wishes, trusting I had my reasons. The initial small talk was excruciatingly awkward. Chloe kept darting nervous glances at me, while her mother tried desperately to steer the conversation toward wedding plans, dress fittings, honeymoon destinations. So, Alex, Chloe was telling us you two had a slight disagreement after her spa trip, but isn't it wonderful she got that relaxation in before the big day? Carol chirped, oblivious. That was my cue. I cleared my throat, and the table fell silent. All eyes turned to me. Actually, Carol, Richard, I began, my voice steady, calm. There seems to be a misunderstanding about Chloe's trip. It wasn't a spa weekend upstate. Chloe visibly tensed, her knuckles white where she gripped her fork. Oh, Richard asked, frowning slightly. No, I continued, reaching down beside my chair for the folder. It was a romantic getaway to the Maldives. With her lover, Mark. I placed the folder gently on the table, sliding it towards the center. The silence that followed was absolute. You could hear a pin drop. Chloe gasped, shaking her head frantically. Alex, don't. That's not true. He's lying. Her voice was high-pitched, bordering on hysterical. Her mother looked bewildered. Maldives? Lover? Alex, what on earth are you talking about? Chloe, tell him he's mistaken. But her father, Richard, a man I'd always known to be quiet but observant, slowly reached for the folder. His eyes scanned the first page, the tagged Instagram photo. His face, initially confused, hardened into a mask of disbelief, then dawning, horrified understanding. He flipped through the pages, his expression growing darker with each piece of evidence. The emails, the credit card charges, the photos of Chloe draped over another man. Carol snatched the folder from him, her eyes scanning the contents rapidly. Her face went from confused to angry to utterly aghast. She looked from the photos to her daughter, then back again. Chloe, she whispered, her voice trembling. Is this true? Chloe burst into tears, burying her face in her hands. It was a mistake. I love Alex. Mark means nothing. Please, Mom, Dad, make him understand. But the evidence was irrefutable. The carefully constructed facade of the perfect daughter, the loving fiancée, crumbled before their eyes. Richard slammed his fist on the table, making the dishes rattle. A mistake, he roared, his face flushed with anger. Lying to us? Lying to Alex? Taking money, going halfway across the world with him? While planning a wedding. Carol just stared at Chloe, tears welling in her own eyes, a look of profound disappointment washing over her features. How could you, Chloe? How could you humiliate us, humiliate Alex, like this? Chloe's tearful denials and pleas of, it's not what it looks like, sounded hollow and pathetic against the weight of the evidence in the folder. There was no spinning this, no minimizing it. The truth, in all its ugly detail, was laid bare on the dining room table. I watched the scene unfold, a strange sense of detachment washing over me. There was no triumph, no satisfaction in their pain. Just a grim sense of closure. The lies had stopped. I quietly pushed my chair back and stood up. I think I've made my point, I said softly, my voice cutting through Chloe's sobs. The wedding is off. The engagement is over. I reached into my pocket and placed the engagement ring box on the table, next to the folder. You can keep it, Chloe. Or sell it. Maybe it'll help pay for your next trip. Her head snapped up, her tear-streaked face contorted with disbelief and fury. Alex, you can't do this. It's already done, I replied, my voice final. I looked at her parents, whose faces were a mixture of shame, anger, and pity. I'm sorry it had to come out this way, but you deserve to know the truth. Without another word, I turned and walked towards the door. Chloe screamed my name, a raw, desperate sound. Her father yelled something incoherent. Her mother just sobbed. I didn't look back. I walked out of their perfect house, into the cool night air, leaving the wreckage of Chloe's lies and shattered illusions behind me. The weight on my chest felt lighter than it had in weeks. It wasn't victory. It was liberation. The climax wasn't a fiery explosion, but a quiet, decisive implosion of her carefully crafted world. She wanted to protect her image? Her image was now permanently stained by the truth she tried so desperately to hide. And as I drove away, leaving the sound of her family's implosion behind me, I knew one thing for sure: my healing could finally begin. The hardest part was over. Or so I hoped. A year can feel like a lifetime, especially when it follows the kind of seismic upheaval that shattered my world. That first year after the disastrous dinner at Chloe's parents' house was a process. There wasn't a magical switch that turned off the pain or erased the memories. Healing, I learned, isn't linear. There were days I woke up feeling lighter, breathing easier, ready to face the world. And there were days the phantom limb of the relationship ached, days where anger flared unexpectedly, or a wave of sadness would wash over me at the sight of a happy couple or a mention of weddings. But slowly, steadily, the good days started to outnumber the bad. The crushing weight of betrayal began to lift, replaced by a growing sense of self-awareness and, eventually, peace. Walking away from that dinner wasn't just walking away from Chloe and her family, it was walking towards myself. I threw myself into work, not as an escape, but with renewed focus. My marketing career, which had always been solid, started to take off. I channeled the energy that used to go into planning a wedding and managing Chloe's complexities into my projects. Promotions followed, recognition came, and with it, a significant boost in confidence and financial stability. I moved out of the apartment we'd shared, too many ghosts, and found a new place overlooking a park. Filling it with my own things, decorating it to my taste, felt incredibly empowering. It was my space, untainted by lies. I reconnected with friends I'd unintentionally neglected during the intensity of my relationship with Chloe. Dave remained my steadfast ally, but rebuilding other friendships reminded me of the support system I had outside of a romantic partnership. We took weekend trips, real ones, hiking, camping, exploring cities, filling my life with new experiences and genuine connections. I started hitting the gym regularly, not out of vanity, but for the mental clarity and stress relief. Taking care of myself, physically and mentally, became a priority in a way it hadn't been before. I was rebuilding my life, not based on a shared dream with someone else, but on my own terms, according to my own values. What about Chloe? Well, the fallout from that dinner was apparently nuclear. I didn't seek out information, but in a connected world, news travels. Mutual acquaintances, pitying friends, even Dave, who occasionally heard things through the grapevine, painted a picture that was, well, exactly what you might expect. Her parents were mortified and deeply disappointed. The carefully curated image of their perfect daughter was shattered, not just for them, but within their social circle as the truth inevitably trickled out. The wedding being called off so abruptly, combined with the rumors ignited by the evidence I'd presented, left little room for interpretation. Chloe's attempts to control the narrative failed spectacularly. Her relationship with Mark, the Queen, and her tropical getaway partner? It imploded almost immediately after the public exposure. Apparently, Mark wasn't interested in dealing with the drama, the family disapproval, or a partner who came with so much baggage and public humiliation. He was reportedly back on Instagram soon after, posting pictures with other women, #blessedlifestyle unchanged, leaving Chloe to deal with the consequences alone. Karma, perhaps, in its own twisted way. He got his fun, faced minimal repercussions, while she lost everything: her fiancé, her reputation, the support of her family, at least temporarily, and the escape relationship she'd risked it all for. Last I heard, Chloe had moved out of the city, back to her hometown. Apparently, she struggled to find work, her confidence shot, her social life in tatters. Friends reported she seemed adrift, constantly lamenting what she'd lost, perhaps finally understanding the value of the stability and genuine affection she'd so casually thrown away for fleeting excitement. There were a couple of attempts from her to reach out, about 6 months after the split. An email, rambling and filled with self-pity mixed with belated apologies. Then a voicemail, left late one night, sounding lost and regretful. I never replied. Not out of lingering anger, but because there was simply nothing left to say. Her chapter in my life was closed, sealed, and archived. Responding would only reopen wounds that were finally beginning to scar over. Her struggles weren't my concern anymore. They were the consequences of her own choices. Did I find someone new? Not immediately. I wasn't looking. The focus was on healing myself, on understanding what I truly wanted and needed in a partner, and on learning to trust again, starting with trusting my own judgment. About 8 months ago, though, I met Sarah. It was unexpected, organic. We met volunteering at an animal shelter, bonding over muddy paws and shared laughter. She's kind, funny, intelligent, and incredibly down-to-earth. There's no drama, no facade. What you see is what you get. She knows about my past. I was open about the engagement ending badly, though I spared her the ugliest details initially. She understood, listened without judgment, and gave me the space I needed. Building a relationship with her has been slow, steady, and refreshingly real. It feels healthy, grounded. There's a mutual respect, a transparency that I now realize was sorely lacking with Chloe. It's not the whirlwind, movie romance feeling I thought I wanted before. It's something quieter, deeper, and infinitely more valuable. A few weeks ago, the universe delivered one final, strange postscript. I was having coffee with Sarah at an outdoor cafe downtown. It was a beautiful Saturday morning. As we were talking, I saw her, Chloe, walking down the street, heading towards the cafe. She looked different. The vibrant energy was gone, replaced by a sort of weary resignation. She hadn't seen me yet. My first instinct was a jolt of adrenaline, a flicker of the old anger. But it faded almost instantly. Looking at her, I didn't feel hatred. I didn't even feel pity, really. Just indifference. She was a ghost from a past life, someone I barely recognized anymore. She glanced towards the cafe, probably looking for a table, and her eyes met mine. For a split second, her expression froze. Shock. Recognition. Then, something unreadable, shame? Regret? She quickly looked away, changed direction, and hurried down a side street, disappearing from view. Sarah noticed my distraction. "Everything okay?" she asked gently. I took a breath, turned back to her, and smiled. A real smile. "Yeah," I said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "Everything's perfect." And I meant it. Seeing Chloe, seeing how little impact her presence had on me, was the final confirmation. I had moved on. Truly, completely moved on. Looking back on the whole ordeal, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the anger, the calculated dismantling of lies, I don't feel bitterness anymore. It was a brutal, painful chapter, but it taught me invaluable lessons. Lessons about trust, about red flags, about the importance of transparency and communication in a relationship. It taught me about my own resilience, my own strength. It showed me who my true friends were. It forced me to rebuild my life on a foundation of self-respect and authenticity, rather than on the shaky ground of someone else's approval or a picture-perfect image. The scars are there, yes. They remind me of the pain, but they also remind me that I survived it, that I healed, and that I came out stronger on the other side. Sometimes, the most devastating endings are actually paving the way for much brighter beginnings. You just have to walk through the wreckage and keep putting one foot in front of the other, trusting that you're heading towards something better. And eventually, you find that you are. And that brings us to the end of today's story. Thank you so much for tuning in. I truly hope to see you again for more fascinating tales ahead. If you enjoyed it, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our next adventure. See you soon.